It's important to get these facts right because here's what's going on. Again, not a single cent has been spent from that account. When any money is spent from that account, it can only be used for medical supplies, for food, for medicine. And those who are saying otherwise are either misinformed or misinforming, and it's wrong either way. By the way, not a single dollar from that account has actually been spent to date. And in any event, it's very carefully and closely regulated by the Treasury Department to make sure that it's only used for food, for medicine, for medical equipment. So some who are advancing this false narrative, they're either misinformed or they're misinforming. And either way, it's wrong. So people are either misinformed or they're misinforming. And either way, it's wrong.
Mr. Secretary, as you know, Republican candidates have been criticizing the administration for the deal that you just struck with Iran to release 5 American detainees in exchange for some Iranian detainees, as well as releasing $6 billion. Your officials have already said Iran has not yet seen a cent of that money. But how do you respond to Republican critics who say that that deal funded the attacks on Israel?
Well, it's very unfortunate that some are playing politics at a time when so many lives have been lost and Israel remains under attack. Here are the facts. The facts are that these were not U.S. taxpayer dollars. These were Iranian resources that had accumulated from the sale of its oil that were stuck in a bank in South Korea from day one, under our law, under our sanctions, going back many years. It's always had the right to use those funds for humanitarian purposes, for food, for medicine, for medical equipment. The funds were moved from one bank to another where it could more easily do that, but under the close supervision of the U.S. Treasury Department.
Mr. Secretary,
No, it's important. It's important to get these facts right because here's what's going on. Again, not a single cent has been spent from that account. When any money is spent from that account, it can only be used for medical supplies, for food, for medicine. And those who are saying otherwise are either misinformed or misinforming, and it's wrong either way.
What do you say about the argument that money is fungible? So Iran may have known this money is coming and used other funds to help fund this attack that happened.
Iran has unfortunately always used and focused its funds on supporting terrorism, on supporting groups like Hamas, and it's done that when there have been sanctions. It's done that when there haven't been sanctions, and it's always prioritized that. And again, I come back to the proposition that these funds have always been, under the law, available to Iran to use for humanitarian purposes. The Trump administration set up a very similar mechanism to enable Iran to use these kinds of assets for humanitarian purposes. We've done the same thing.
Does dealing with Hamas mean dealing with Iran? Was Iran behind this?
So there's a long relationship between Iran and Hamas. In fact, Hamas wouldn't be Hamas without the support that it's gotten over many years from Iran. We haven't yet seen direct evidence that Iran was behind this particular attack or involved, but the support over many years is clear. It's one of the reasons that over the last couple of years, we have been resolutely working against Iran's support for terrorism, for destabilizing actions in other countries. We've sanctioned more than 400 Iranian individuals and entities precisely for the kind of support that they've offered Hamas in the past. And it's something that we remain extremely vigilant about.
As you know, many in the GOP are laying blame on the Biden administration in the wake of that recent deal to unfreeze Iranian assets that were unfrozen for humanitarian purposes in return for the release of those American hostages. Here's what Steve Scalise, one of the candidates for Speaker, put out yesterday. The Biden administration must be held accountable for its appeasement of these Hamas terrorists, including handing over billions of dollars to them and their Iranian backers. Your response?
Well, look, I'm not going to comment on specific comments by individuals. I can say this. It's unfortunate that some are, in effect, saying things that may be motivated by politics at a time when so many lives have been lost and Israel remains under attack. And the facts are these, and should be well known. This involved Iranian resources, not American taxpayer dollars. These were resources that Iran had acquired from the sale of its oil that were stuck in a bank. In this case in South Korea. They have always been entitled to use those funds under our law and under our sanctions for humanitarian purposes, and the funds were moved from one bank to another to facilitate that. By the way, not a single dollar from that account has actually been spent to date, and in any event, it's very carefully and closely regulated by the Treasury Department to make sure that it's only used for food, for medicine, for medical equipment. So some who are advancing this false narrative, they're either misinformed or they're misinforming, and either way it's wrong.
Secretary Blinken, do you have evidence that Iran directed this attack?
There's a long relationship between Iran and Hamas. In fact, Hamas wouldn't be around in the way that it is without the support that it's received from Iran over the years. In this specific instance, we have not yet seen evidence that Iran directed or was behind this particular attack, but there's certainly a long relationship. It's one of the reasons why we have been resolutely taking action against Iran and its support for terrorists and terrorist proxies and other groups over the last few years of this administration. We've sanctioned more than 400 Iranian individuals and entities precisely because of their support for things like Hamas.
While we're talking about Iran, I just have to ask you to, if you want to respond to what we're hearing from Republicans who are over and over since this happened, using the word appeasement when it comes to Iran and your administration. They criticized the decision to unfreeze $6 billion in Iranian funds. I know and want to state that that money, according to your administration, has not yet been unfrozen. Iran does not yet have it. But the accusation is that Iran's posture, that the U.S., your administration's posture towards Iran has helped contribute to this. I want to give you a chance to respond.
Well, there are two things here. First, with regard to the funds that you mentioned that were released were made available to Iran for humanitarian purposes as part of getting Americans back who are being held and detained in Iran. Let's be very clear about this. And it's deeply unfortunate that some are playing politics when so many lives have been lost and Israel remains under attack. The facts are these. No U.S. Taxpayer dollars were involved. These were Iranian resources that Iran had accumulated from the sale of its oil that were stuck in a bank in South Korea. They have had from day one, under our law, under our sanctions, the right to use these monies for humanitarian purposes. They were moved from one account to another in another country to facilitate that use. As of now, not a single dollar has been spent from that account. And again, the account is closely regulated by the U.S. Treasury Department, so it can only be used for things like food, medicine, medical equipment. That's what this is about. And by the way, the previous administration set up a very similar mechanism to enable Iran to use its oil proceeds that were blocked in various places or stuck in various places for humanitarian purposes. So people are either misinformed or they're misinforming. And either way, it's wrong.